Okay, I don't know if we are live. I think we are. I think this is all coming through. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. So we're getting a little bit of a late start today. I was up very late last night and I slept until pretty much the last minute. So you're going to have to forgive me for this. I was actually writing the next chapter, and then I realized that there was like, oh my God. Basically, I'm realizing that I have to it's in the last quarter of the story, and I have to have what I do next is probably going to be really important, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, which is fascinating because I've been so involved in Empire of Stars. I have not yet, in Everdark Academy, Empire of Stars. I had an idea. Now I have to go reread and think about what I was thinking for the next things. So, all right. Excellent. Sirius, thank you so much for letting me know. Hi, everybody. All right. Hello. Excellent. It's so good to see all of you. I always love how we have at least one person who is doing their first live. So this is like always every week. So every month, rather. So this is always good. Now I'm going to open the Diet Coke. We got some ASMR going on here when I do this. I think that that's the most iconic sound. I need caffeine directly into my veins here. How is everybody doing? What are you guys eating, drinking something good? Oh, hello from Target. Someone's working. You do not have to apologize for missing some live streams, although we miss everybody. For sure. We lost like a bunch of people just a second there. That's weird. Okay. All right. Excellent. Let me do some. Let's see here. Ooh, they're barbecuing in their driveway. Yum. Oh, of course, but it's in the front yard, so that sounds a little weird. Chocolate and cola, nice, Frederica. Rice Krispies treat, yum, from Disneyland. Are you at Disneyland, David? Hello, Michael from Eastern Kentucky. Beautiful state. Beth is finishing up her yummy coffee with MCT oil powder. Ooh, okay, that's interesting. I'm one of these people who never got into coffee. I think you really have to get into coffee when you're young. Lilith says it's 3 and I'm hungry. I actually ate an egg sandwich at 4:20 last night, 4:20 a.m., which is like really weird. But I was like up so late working, and then I hadn't really eaten very much the day before, and so I'm like, I need breakfast, I guess. So I've signed up for this wild grain subscription box, and I am telling you, holy crap, best thing I've ever done. Great breads and everything. It's amazing. Sirius is having Zapp's Voodoo Pretzels, Slim Jims for the occasion, and Baja Blast soda. Nice. Slushy is the best, yes. Hi from Memphis. All right, happy early birthday, monkey. Yeah, Beth, I think my mother made terrible coffee. So glad you're here, Lilith. Leisurely Panda says you have EMDR paint training all week, and I bet. It's been a little bit of a tough week, I think. I don't know if you guys know this, but Everdark sequel, Everdark Academy, just finished up last Friday. And typically, and I should know this about myself after finishing over 30 serials, I collapse after that and I need some space to just not write for a day or so, a few days. And I did not do that. And I just sort of plowed forward. I had a Night Prince chapter that was mostly done. So I finished that up on Monday. But on Wednesday, when I was supposed to do Empire of Stars, and especially now that I realize it's in such a big air place, I couldn't write. I couldn't do it. I just like sent an email to everyone like, I'm really sorry, but this just isn't happening. I'm not going to make that chapter up. I can't. It's too tough right now. I have to think about Empire of Stars. I need some time to like consider it, and I'll have much more mental space next month. So for those of you who are members, next month, how this will go is we will have Empire of Stars, The Wicked Path, and Night Prince, with a lot of room being given to the Night Prince and these other chapters. And then we're going to start Everdark Equinox the following month. So I just need some time to just like, mentally switch over. So Raythe is having a chocolate strawberry smoothie with nuts, fruit, and cheese. The snack items are nice. Everything, yeah. Seriously. All right, let me just do a few more. Leisurely Panda. You just keep. Leisurely Panda is okay. They are a member. I think you bought books and other stuff, and you always do super chats. And it's like, my God, my God. Okay, so let's read their question. Wraith, do you think Raythe and Jace bond over their mutual appreciation of human junk food? Oh my God, yes. So Raythe is a night prince. He is an elf. He is, although not the type of elf he proclaims himself to be, and he adores junk food. So in this chapter upcoming, he's going to find the joys of caramel corn, cotton candy, and I'm not sure if anything else, but yes, sugar is like his drug. So he and Gemma and Finley are going to bond over that. But more importantly, we're going to see the softer side of Raythe and Gran. So we'll get some of that. So that's coming up. So yes, I think they would. I think Jace and Raythe would get along like a house on fire. Lucas says, I've been playing Mass Effect trilogy for the last 3 months, and it's awesome to see some similarities between the lore of the games and it. Yep. Yeah. And actually, I'm taking this also from a lot of other much older science fiction properties, like this idea of lost civilizations, that you find them and that, this is it there. That's yeah, it's like unfortunate. It's not a trope. That's not really what I would call it, but I would say that it is standard practice. But Mass Effect obviously is just a huge, huge inspiration, as is obviously Star Trek. So Draco Dawnstars from Youngstown, Ohio, nice. The last 2 weeks, I binge listened to all of EOS. The space opera is amazing. I love it. It's definitely a space opera. It is not hard space science. I had one guy, he would send me messages until I had to literally block him because he was becoming abusive and was talking to me about red shift and blue shift and how I was so dumb for not understanding that my laser guns, all they needed to do was change. I was like, I don't even know what that means. I really don't. And I suppose I could look into it, but I'm not going to because I want things to go pew pew and fly around. I mean, I'm like, why are you trying to take away someone's fun? Why does it have to be like what you want it to be fun? I'm like, write your own gosh darn, science fiction, hard fantasy novel if you want that. I don't want that. I want the pew pews. That's what I want. Thank you, David. David says, take the time you need to do the stories justice. We can wait for good stories rather than pushing out low quality stuff. Yeah, I don't ever put out low quality stuff. I just don't. Thankfully, my writing process is such for the most part that good stuff comes out. Especially I don't have to be a lot of writers talk about needing to be inspired, but the truth is you just need to put your butt in the seat and hands to the keyboard and do sort of like a Pomodoro approach where you just like get into flow for 20 minute segments at a time, and then allow myself to play a video game or watch a show or color or something like that, and then just do the whole process again. But sometimes it's harder than not. But I will have to say, because now Empire of Stars, I'm realizing, is really in the wrap up phase 2, I almost felt this state of despair because I have been so focused on ending EDA and getting EDE set up that I feel like I did not have the mental space to go way back into EOS, Empire of Stars, and really refocus on everything I need to, and I just couldn't. And I'm not real happy about that. Chapter tonight is fine. It's a good idea, but I have so many ideas I want to look at and so many things I'm not sure if I want to do or not. I don't know. We'll find out. It's going to be interesting. Trixon, I think it's just you that the sound is broken. What is caramel corn, Frederica? Caramel corn. That's how we pronounce it. I want Raythe to experience funnel cakes and glazed donuts. Oh, that's a good idea. They could probably have that. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Leisurely Panda. It's science fiction. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's supposed to. I get that there are those who really love the hard science. It's not my mindset. I mean, of course, I could research and think. I'm not going to do that. That's not interesting to me at all in that sense. And quite frankly, I think that would get away in the story, as it often does, in my view, and a lot of these hard science fiction stuff. And I laugh because sometimes these guys and gals think it's hard science fiction. It's like, nope, it's not. It's not. But it's always interesting. Monkey says, I got my sister and brother into Dragon's Reign. I'll try to get them into Everdark and EOS. Thank you. I love it. Let's see here. Oh my God, serious? All right. Jeez, guys. Of course, members are amazing. So Sirius says, I'm a member as well. I was curious. ED is voiced. Are the others, EDA and eventually EDE, going to be as well? That I would love to tell you, but I can't tell you right now. You just have to, I feel bad. I realize you gave a super chat on it. You just have to keep the faith. We're going to have a huge announcement next month about something else, which I think is going to be make your membership even that much better. And then we are going to have more announcements after that, but let's just put it that way. There's at least one huge announcement before I say anything else about EDE. Lurleen says, I had wondered why you had to try to write so soon. I shall miss EDA. Yeah. It was not a the thing is I wasn't sure when I was going to exactly finish EDA, and I should have. Long-term members already know this is going to happen, but I know that people who are new might be disappointed because if someone's on for a month, they really hope they get all those updates, right? That's very important to them. And not getting even one, they might feel like, I got cheated. You didn't give me what I asked for. And I always feel really bad about that. But you wouldn't want to read what I'd written or tried to write on Wednesday. Breyer says, I have to take month-long breaks in between reading serial series sometimes. I can't imagine how it feels writing. Yeah. It was tough, but I would love to take off a week, but I can't do that because that's not fair to people who've signed up for stuff. So we try to what I'm going to try to do in the future is to have other stuff planned that would add value to, the members. Like, for example, extra audio, an extra free book or something for them so that they'd have that if I need that time, because I really do need that time, especially when I realized where EOS was. I knew where it was, but I didn't know where it was, if that makes sense. So yeah, you keep feeding us. I can't wait for next month. I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. This whole year, is going to be release after release after release after release. It's just crazy. I have it planned out. So, to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it. I'm asking a lot of myself, asking a lot of the team. But it's going to be hopefully something that you guys are really going to enjoy. David asks, do you write a chapter a day or is it more or less? It's pretty much a chapter a day. And the days where I'm not writing, I'm actually doing other things for the site. And also I have a day job. So it's great fun. I'm an executive and it's bizarre. It's okay, turn your mind from insurance to, science fiction or vampires. So yeah. So yeah, it's really that, and I also, like, I write all the manga, I direct all the people who work for Wraith Rain, I am doing manuscripting, I am planning the next thing, big project, I'm actually managing, which I've hated to do. I luckily, I don't have to do much of that. Most times, the people on the team are very self-sufficient, but they do need the captain of the ship sometimes. Thanks. So Sirius says, thanks and no worries. Wanted to support you more. So totally fine. I can understand that. Can't say at the moment. Wasn't sure it was something that was already mentioned. It has not been already mentioned. EOS is Empire of Stars, Adrian. And David answered that. And we are almost 30 people. Lurleen says, I have loved your surprises, so I can reread something else while I wait. Well, I appreciate us. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we're having more of a group today. That's nice. That's really nice. The key in that is quality. So I realize that there might be a few that are upset with me for although nobody said anything, which was very lovely. Nobody wrote me a nasty email, nobody, sent a DM saying, why I paid for this, and I'm just like, I'm really sorry. I'm like really sorry. I'm like, but this would not have been good. So I think people do understand, which is very nice. I mean, that's the one cool thing about Wraith Rain. Everyone's like, oh, the internet is the wild, wild west, and people say anything they want. But we really have the members are incredibly kind. And I don't know if I've just been extremely lucky, which I'm sure has been part of it. But I'd like to think that because you guys know me as a real person, and Jeremy and Kat and Sylvia and Mathia and T Wolf, like as real people, you realize that we're not like some kind of faceless corporate drones, that you say something to us as you would to people who you would know face to face, because I feel like I know so many of you, even just from your names. Like I'm like, oh, this person has a birthday, or this person has had something going on, with them. And so it feels very different to me, which is good because when I'm putting these things out, I'm doing it because I want you guys to be happy, and that's like the whole point of it. Is like I don't want anyone, I want people not. I don't write things to challenge people. I write things to entertain and to basically like get the voices out of my head. Okay, so David had another question. Oh, I have a question. If you go back in time, would you still become a lawyer, or would you have gone full time into writing? David, that is a fascinating question because um okay. Being a lawyer, I became a lawyer because it was in my wheelhouse and skill sets, and I also thought that it would support me. We were really poor, and I was so sick and tired of being poor as a kid. We lived in a wealthy area, but we were poor because my parents divorced, and dad occasionally sent the money to support us, but really it was my mom's salary, and we were like duct taping car panels on and keeping the heat so low that your hands hurt, and eating hot dogs and stuff like that, like all the time. And I didn't want to continue doing that. It was like when you're poor, how it can be like fucking PTSD all the time. Everything is like a mountain. I didn't want that. I refused to have that. But I'd grown up in a really good school district with a lot of opportunities, and I took advantage of all those I could, thankfully, and was able to go to law school and become a lawyer. But that was the most soul grinding, horrific work I think I could imagine. It is not for the faint of heart. And you really have to understand that you need to sacrifice your life, at least back in the day. It's changed a little bit now since the pandemic, as everything has, on the altar of the billable hour. You shouldn't be leaving there. You don't have a life. You shouldn't be having a life. You should be working 7 days a week as a lawyer. You should be seeking out clients. You should be, perfectly groomed and coiffed and ready to go at any given time and grateful to do it. And I never was. I realized I wanted there to be a hard stop. I didn't want to do this. So, um, to give like a really, well, it's a longer story, but basically I got to like a pinnacle firm and I totally flamed out. I totally fucking flamed out. I had all this money and all this stuff, and I was getting up at 4 in the morning and jogging because I was so stressed out. I had partners screaming at me, and I lost that job, and it was the best thing that ever could have happened. I went into another firm where I actually learned a lot about lawyering, how to be a lawyer. But that firm too imploded after a time. And then I went in house at a corporation, and I actually am not working as a lawyer there for them. But I'm going to tell you right now that I am so grateful that I'm not doing that. When I started Wraith Rain, it was in 2009. After I had cancer. That was another thing that ended the career as an attorney, because it was like I had cancer and I developed diabetes. Like soon after that, I was 30 fucking 4 years old. That's where I was. That could give you an idea of just how brutal. I mean, those two things together were like fun times. But it gives you a definitely different perspective on life. But at the same time, I was terrified of being quote unquote poor again. I didn't want to do that. But I became a lawyer knowing I was going to write on the side because I thought you couldn't make any money writing. And honestly, until the way things have changed for indie authors, I never would have made any money. Um, I mean, I created Wraith Rain. That makes money. And the books now make money. We are now making money, which is like spectacular. But the most important thing to me is paying the people who work for me. And I seem to keep honestly hiring more people rather than taking more money for myself to stop the day job. I love seeing artists, especially being able to do this for a living. But for myself, I never want I never want to think I can't do this sort of wacky story because I might not be able to pay my mortgage or afford my medicines. I don't want writing to become that to me. And so because of my fear of being poor again, I don't think I'll ever stop the day job, no matter how successful Wraith Rain becomes. I just, like you've seen, I've hired a whole acting company to do Everdark. I mean, that's not cheap. I could be pocketing that money myself, and many of you would be perfectly happy with what I had done before. I don't want to just do that. I want to keep growing and changing and evolving. Like most of you know, many of you know that one of my big things that I want to do is live action stuff eventually, like to us to do our own mini films, or like a little like TV show or something like that we could have. I really want to do that. I really want to do like an anime, and as we can work now, those things take an incredible amount of money and would probably take some crowdfunding, and we need to be bigger for that. Mm. But every little step is a step closer to that. So I don't regret becoming a lawyer because it's allowed me to have a very successful career. Weirdly, in insurance, guys, insurance is actually a great career if you're thinking about it. Nobody's thinking about it, but trust me, it is. In insurance, to basically keep myself, pay for my daily needs and use the Wraith Rain money to pay the people who work for me. And of course, for some extra things, some very nice things that I have a very nice car. I have, money in the bank. But it definitely, my fear of being poor again, and just having Wraith Rain be like a method to just make money, that makes me sort of weirded out. So I say no, I would not. I would still become a lawyer. All right. So Lilith says, I'm trying to rush with the other chapters now because I don't want to be spoilers, but I really want to be here. I'm so glad you're here. We definitely do some, talking, obviously, before we go on. I like babble at you. So Leisurely Panda says, I love the image of Raythe as Gran stuffing his face with junk food. Imagine it smeared on his face too. And bringing some back for Aquilin to experience the wonders of human culinary marvels as Lasha and her family watch in horror. God, yeah, it's going to totally happen. Wraith, you're awesome and loves. Oh, thank you, my Leisurely Panda. Okay. Small Alien says, I think that you don't have to deal with much of those sort of negative comments because you very clearly communicate with everyone when and why you're taking breaks. Thank you very much, Small Alien. You guys you're always so patient. You know what's happened. I try to tell you what's happening and, all the same. And I'm always like, I'm worried about basically disappointing people, um, to be perfectly honest. Beth, that's so sweet to say that. Thank you. It was out of, these things happened, and when you lay them out, they sound absolutely terrible, and they were pretty terrible. But I hate to say it, but they really do reposition your view on things. You are not the same as you were before they happened. You just simply are not. Like losing my mom this past year has inspired me. I am going to move into a house. I'm going to have a wood burning fireplace, which I love, and a backyard, which I've not had in a long time. And I'm going to get some dogs as well as some more cats. So that's something that I've decided to do. I've been in a condo for 20 years, which I've loved. But again, there's been a lot. After the pandemic and needing like space, I'm really excited to do this because I can have an office where I can actually, record and do this stuff without it being like the train and all this everything. I think that most of us, thank you so much, Raythe, for that. I think watch you guys, and I know that so many of you are struggling. And I know that so many of you work incredibly hard. I mean, really, I I'm always honored when people give me their money because I remember how making choices were like, do I buy that Diet Coke or do I get to, rent a movie or whatever, or, how we did things. So if you're taking that money and using it towards us, I know that's taking it away from something else where you're having to somehow make that balancing act. And I'm so honored that you do that for me. Tricker Down Stars. Damn, Wraith Hugs, you are indeed a champion overcoming those hard times. I like to think that it's truly the what does not kill you makes you stronger. It just makes life more precious. I really do think that. I think that I don't one of the things, and I hope that those of you who have creative endeavors or any kind of endeavors, after cancer, I created Wraith Rain. I said, what am I doing? Chasing what I saw as security and money, but it was miserable. I mean, believe me, I know you need to have a roof over your head and heat and food and insurance, and you don't. And money is the having money is freedom. I think that's how I've always equated it. Not like hoarding it like some kind of dragon. It's I always said if one of us in our family makes it, all of us make it. So I've been trying to do that amongst friends groups and amongst all this kind of stuff. And but it really did say to me, like, you've got to have more of a life than just trying to hang on by your fingernails because of your fears. Like, I mean, fear can fuel you, but fear can also hold you in place like an insect in amber, and don't let it. Um, I feel that hog leisurely panda. David, you're in insurance too. Oh my God, we could just geek out. Yes, no, 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 no. This is like David, fantastic. But you know what I mean? Like, I realize claims is actually the hardest fucking job, but it's amazing. It's amazing. It's actually you are really helping people. You are truly helping people, and you can make a big difference in people's lives. Um, Thank you, Mel V. Rodrika, that is so kind. We so appreciate it. Thank you, Grizzly. I'm going to miss it too. I've loved this place, and it's like I'm having the house gutted and remodeled right now. So this is some Wraith Rain money, but honestly, most of it comes from my inheritance from my mom. I took that money, all of it, my friends, and I'm gutting the house and adding on a little bit because it's a small ranch home. But it's on this beautiful lot, beautiful, it's massive yard, It's on a third of an acre. I know for those of you who like live in areas where that's nothing, this is like in a suburb. So to have a third of an acre in the suburb, it's got amazing old trees and bunnies and all the kinds of things, all that, that you just don't get when you're living in a condo. So I'm really looking forward to that. Again, I'm going back to my hometown where I grew up. And I feel like there was, how shall I put this? We had a lot of good times in my old hometown. Spectacular times, but also some really horrible times with a lot of like food insecurity and a lot of insecurity. My mom did her absolute best, but she was sort of a mess. She was a mess. And in a way, going back there is me being able to recreate the good times and make them better and sort of like eliminate the wash away overwrite the stuff that wasn't so great. Does that make sense? I think that's sort of what I'm doing it. So yeah, it does sound. I'm gonna get mutts, leisurely panda. I'm gonna get rescues. I'm gonna also get some older cats and stuff. I'm open to. Never had a dog myself, so I've got to learn how to train one. And I'm hoping that if I get a nice dog, that you know, I just don't want them to be too huge or too small. I don't want yappy dogs. I don't want like big, like ones that bowl you over. Other than that, I'm open. Um, David, so he says, greyhounds are best. They look very cute. To be honest with you, yeah, I'm just open to, any dog that, just to give them a good home. And I think you have to have two of them so that they can have a friend. I've got an elderly cat right now, so and I'm going to get a trainer and I'm going to learn how to do all the things because I really need to learn how to do that so that I can make sure that this dog is, I want to make sure that the dog is friendly to everybody and that I'm like setting good boundaries for the dog. And I'm going to let this dog sleep in bed with me and be on the couch. Don't worry about that. I'm not that one of those people. I love that, but I don't want the dog to be mean or growly or barky at people. And I don't want the dog to come onto people don't want them to come onto so that they'll sit. So that's what I'm thinking. So, I'm not adverse to a pit bull. They seem like such sweeties sometimes. I just think you just, have to make sure you get the right one and that you train appropriately. Or maybe I'm just naive about that. I don't know. But that's what I think. That's my hope anyway. All right. I have talked your ears off, but I need to do one announcement, two announcements, two announcements. All right. Forgive me. Here is the sales pitch. It's a sales pitch. We just put out, hold on one second here. I'm just going to get it right now so I can get to the page and put the beloved thing here. We have just put out Everdark 7 for sale. It's the 7th volume in the oh wait here. There we go. This is 7th volume in the Everdark series. It just came out a couple weeks ago. For those of you who would like to have your own very own copy of the audiobook, the hardcover, which I signed and put a personal note in, or the ebook, you can go to our shop and you can pick one up right now. They are hot off the presses. I am very excited. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. The books are just lovely. Ingram Spark does do a good job. I wish I could do foil, but they don't do that yet. So we'll see. Sales pitch time. And then the next thing is, which I've already been talking about, but in another way. So if you've been enjoying Everdark and really want to get ahead, Everdark is of course completed, and also Everdark on the site is completed. It's like the whole story is there. And they are 15 chapters ahead in terms of the audiobook, so they will be finished this year, way ahead of where it's going to be finished on the public podcast. And you can listen to that, but you can also read all of the sequel, Everdark Academy, and be part of Everdark Equinox, which is starting up in May. Ugh. Yeah. So let me just, the character on the cover is Arceus Lucius. He is K-Morn's master and a villain. A villain. So it's just, yeah, it's a gorgeous image. Mathia did a knockout job. So thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Okay. Indeed, Adrian. Okay, so for those of you who have never been here, this is what I do. I read 2 chapters of EOS. If they come across sexy times, guess what? We can't read them. It's a disaster. So I'll just have to skim over. I try to like do that in advance, but I think we're fine. We're deep into action adventure time here. But I always do seem to miss like those occasional sexy times chapters. I'm like, oh crap, I guess we can't read that. But yeah, I can't really do any kissing or anything on this because YouTube doesn't like it. But let's put it this way, we're going to do our best. So I'm going to read, and I'm going to probably read the chapters in 2 to 3 chunks. I cannot read your comments, obviously, when I'm reading the chapter, but I do switch over during the breaks to check them out. In the comments, you can ask anything you want. It's an Ask Me Anything. So you can ask me questions about EOS, ED, or whatever. I'll try to answer those. Any comments you have about what I've just read, also try to answer those during the breaks. So we have 2 chapters this today. The first chapter is chapter 110. So let's begin the fun moment. Okay. Chapter 110. Gehenna. Despite her anxiety about Jace, the Osiris, the rogue AI, and everything, Gehenna found herself tracking Dr. Lefray's tail. She told herself that she was doing this for Jace. It was research. He would be fascinated by the fact that the tail constantly moved, swishing across the ground, then curling around her legs, then rising up and down, and the tip of the tip seemed to have a mind of its own. It moved independently of the rest. It curled, it thumped, it formed a question mark. But both the tail and the tip reflected Dr. Lefray's moods as she spoke of the Altaïth. This may sound strange to you, Lieutenant Commander Davies, Dr. Lefray said, but for many in the Alliance, for most, I would say, the Altaïth have been seen as a monolith for good, but one which went forward with one voice and had little to no difference of opinion in how to face the cool threat. Davies lifted an eyebrow. They'd have to be quite a bit different from most of the seeded species I've met to be like that. Dr. Lefray's tail lifted into a large U as her whiskers quivered in amusement. You are correct. Just like us, the Altaïth had as many viewpoints as people, but for a very long time, they were mostly aligned in the war against the Cool. How could they not be? Davies crossed his arms over his chest. The alternative was to be the Cool's food. And the fact that we are conscious when their young devour us is. Dr. Lefray shivered, and the fur on her tail puffed. But something changed, I'm guessing, to fracture that mostly unified position? Davies asked. It was not one thing, but many things. The war went on for hundreds of grand cycles, she explained, with neither side gaining ground permanently. It was a forever war. The Altaïth, who had focused as much on art as science, were changed over time into a civilization that was solely martial, much like how the Thafel have been changing. Loss of family, friends, even whole worlds was something that became normalized for many. The despair was so deep that suicide, though highly frowned upon, became common. In order to combat this overwhelming fear and grief, the Altaïth government used some of the technology developed for the war to create immersive virtual online worlds. It would distract the public from the war, give them hope for a better future. We have something like that, nowhere near as advanced, but game worlds and virtual reality goggles, Davies said. Imagine if this, Dr. Lefray gestured between them, could be perfectly reproduced virtually, except perhaps more fun. Her whiskers quivered and her tail thumped happily. We could look different, be anything we wanted. These would be worlds without the constant pressure of the cool threat. Davies nodded. Makes sense. People often retreat to fantasy when things in the real world get bad. When we would have a recession, we knew that many people would start playing massive multiplayer games online in greater numbers to distract themselves. She nodded. As you know, our bodies are what the cool wants. Our bodies are what makes us vulnerable against the cool as well. If we get infected, we die. If we have a body at all, it is sought as a resource by them. So some Altaith, who were already immersed mostly or almost solely in these virtual worlds, wondered if they could leave those bodies behind and thereby evade the cool threat altogether, stop being what the cool wanted or needed, and then the cool would simply go away. Get rid of their bodies? You mean upload themselves into machines or the net? Davy's eyebrows lifted. She nodded. No longer would they be in danger from the cool. They would have no organic form to be coveted or processed, no form that could be infected or devoured from the inside out. I've experienced a lot of the all-type technology on the Osiris, but I've not seen anything with that kind of power. But perhaps I simply haven't looked into it enough, Davy said with a frown. The pilot's connection to the Osiris and Gehenna here is the closest to that kind of mind-body machine idea I've seen. Dr. Lefray's eyes flickered to Gehenna, and the tip of her tail thumped on the ground almost anxiously. Yes, the Osiris and Gehenna. Gehenna rolled a foot backwards at the way that Dr. Lefray said her name. Davies glanced between them as well. But what could Dr. Lefray know of her and her origins? Unless there had been people here who had known about her and left their mark for the Nindas to find in their visions. But instead of being curious to know what Dr. Lefray might have seen, Gehenna found herself hopeful she would say nothing. Jace had told her that the past wasn't important. Whatever she had been made for didn't matter, because what she did now and would do in the future were the only things to count. She suddenly, desperately wanted this to be true. Do you know something of Gehenna's origins, Dr. Lefray? Something your visions showed you here? Davies asked, and Gehenna grew tense. The Osiris, who had been quiet since Dr. Lefray had begun to speak, said, These visions seem very specific and yet very general, Dr. Lefray. How do you know all of this? One vision could not have informed you of this Altaith history. Dr. Lefray, though, did not seem offended in the least. She put a paw in front of her mouth and chuckled. You're quite right. The visions we get are the memories of the people who inhabited this place and others. I am telling you the synthesis of these visions that the Ninda have been gathering for over a millennia. Dr. Lefray, I am finding none of this synthesis on the shared net, Gehenna burbled out, grateful her own origin story had been left out. You have published countless studies and articles, but nothing like this. She'd been searching through all the databases with Ninda Research since they had started off to the system, but this was far different from anything she had read. Yet the doctor gave no indication of lying. In fact, Gehenna would have said she was being utterly truthful from her vitals to the plain way she spoke. No, you wouldn't. For what I am telling you, here she paused and her tail swished anxiously. What I am telling you would be upsetting to many in the Alliance, and so we have kept it secret. But you three do not have the emotional connection to the tales we have told ourselves about the Altaith over the long, hard grand cycles. Basically, you believe if people in the Alliance knew this stuff, they'd freak out? Davies gasped. She nodded. Perhaps by denying the full story to the seeded species, we are making the same mistake the Altaith government did when it encouraged its people to ignore reality and hide in the virtual. But that has been our determination up to this point. As much as I loathe not knowing the truth myself, I understand the power and sometimes need for propaganda and fantasies, Dr. Frey. War is hard, and if it is long and there is no end in sight, it can become unbearable, Davy said. Please continue. Her tail gave a grateful swish at his understanding and then curled around her legs. We have been told so much about humanity, but even with my brief exposure to the visions you are creating in this ship, I can tell you that we were quite misinformed. But to continue, Dr. Lefray put her paws together. There are those Altaith who decided that they needed to escape the flesh at all costs. She shuddered as if that word, flesh, gave her discomfort, though Gehenna often wondered what it would be like to have flesh and not sensors, nerves and not wires, bone and blood instead of metal and synth oil. Sometimes she thought she almost remembered having such things, but those imaginings had come mostly when she was trapped in the Osiris's brig with no one to speak to for ages, no Jace to comfort her and be her friend. She didn't like to think of them now. What a strange thing to have imagined nonetheless. But the technology to truly successfully upload someone's consciousness, or really a copy of such consciousness, was even beyond the Altaith at that time. Yet there was a fraction who believed that this should be where the Altaith focused their attention, getting rid of their bodies to rid themselves of the danger from the cool. She said, forgetting battling them, simply stop being what the cool needed. And who was going to build those systems, maintain them, and defend them after there was no one with any bodies any longer? Davies lifted an eyebrow. Robots! Gehenna burst out without thinking about what she was saying. She was just certain she was right. And of course, just like Jace rode with me in my ball form, my awesome ball form, she added internally as she rolled back and forth, they could do the same. They would have bodies or more like forms, just like me, so they would take care of the systems that way. Dr. Lefray smiled at her. Yes, exactly, Gehenna. The idea of cyborgs were first put forward, but having even an organic brain would still lead to danger because of its frailty. Besides, organic systems decay more easily and are harder to fix. But as you said, isn't getting rid of the brain just copying the data, I suppose? Just death, anyways? A copy isn't the original. The person is gone. All that's uploaded or whatever isn't them, it's something else, Davies insisted. Gehenna blinked her one red eye. She could see what he meant. A copy might be exactly the same in some ways, but it was a copy. If the original and the copy both went forward, they would each have different experiences, become different. Or if the original ceased, then only the copy went forward and the original had no experiences at all. Dr. Lefray nodded. That objection was made by many in the Altaith Empire, simply uploading a scan of themselves. It would be the death of their entire species, because what remained wouldn't be them at all. And there would be no children either, Davies said. Gehenna had never thought about having a child herself, though she had enjoyed immensely watching Jace grow up and change. He had been her child in a way. Though they had been teacher and student, Jace had always taught her just as much as she had taught him. Again, another point those against uploading had. Those that believed in the idea of uploading thought that conception of new beings would be possible, just not organic life, but synthetic, Dr. Ulfrey said. Gehenna thought of little AIs. Were they the offspring of the net? But that didn't sound right to her. In fact, she nearly physically withdrew again, as if those AIs were before her. There was something sad about them. They were so lonely and eager to please, but so had she and the Osiris been when they'd connected with Jace for the first time. So it wasn't that which repelled her. There was something wrong with them. They reminded her of pale imitations of herself in the Osiris. It was as if some of her subroutines had been given life, but subroutines were not a person. So we have Altaith who wanted to upload themselves and get rid of their bodies, and we have Altaith who wanted to continue on as organic beings. There were more fractures, I take it, Davies guessed. Yes, there were those who wished to advance military technology and continue the war against the cool. Dr. Lefray gestured all around them. The Osiris is most certainly part of that ideology. It is the only logical way, the Osiris said, the letters bold and big and certain appearing on the wall. To continue the war as it was would lead only to the same result. New technology was needed. And in a way, the pilot was a combination of machine and organic working together in harmony, Dr. Lefray said. Each of them is much greater together than apart. Gehenna looked over at the wall where the Osiris normally expressed itself, but there were no words there. It was likely feeling terribly bereft. It was no longer with Jace. It was alone, separate, apart, no longer great. She could understand that despite their differences, she could understand that despite their differences. The Osiris's whole purpose was to serve the pilot. Hers was, well, she wasn't sure. But she did know that she'd felt so much better being with Jace, and that sense of happiness had increased when she'd begun to interact with others, to be a part of things again, to be seen, to be known, to be acknowledged, to have friends, colleagues, family. Yes, that's what she had needed, wanted, desired to have again. Again? But there were many who believed that the pilot program was just another failed attempt, and too many failed attempts, to battle the cool, that the war had to end, Dr. LeFrey explained, her tail tightened around her legs. And this brings me to the people we believe attacked this place. What did they want? Davies has his arms tightly wound around his chest. The Altaith had created some of the seeded species well before the war with the Cool, though it was just in the beginning stages. Dr. LeFrey said with a fond but sad air. It was their desire to spread life, a diversity of life all over the universe, but also some part of themselves too, to continue forward, different yet the same, and to see where that led. Okay, not seeing a problem yet, Davies said. Dr. LeFrey's large eyes met Davy's gaze as she said with a particular precision, the seeded species being created by the Altaith made some in the Altaith consider them lesser. Oh, now I see. Davies grunted and shook his head. The Cool can use the seeded species just as easily as it could use the Altaith in their procreation and food production, Dr. LeFrey said, her whiskers quivering and her tail thumping almost angrily, even though her words were mild. So there was some in the Altaith who thought to offer the seeded species, and more like them, to the Cool in exchange for leaving the Altaith alone. Gehenna froze as she heard this. Internally, though, she was not frozen. Internally, she heard herself shouting, No! Don't you see how wrong that is? You claim we will lose ourselves by losing our bodies, Pelin, but we will truly be lost if we offer the Cool others in our place. Gehenna, you okay? Davies was looking down at her. She was against his right leg, trembling. Um, it's just very upsetting what Dr. LeFrey said, Gehenna cried, which is but the lie, it wasn't. I know. It's a shocker. Or maybe not. Davies reached down and patted her head. The Alliance has made similar decisions by withdrawing defenses on certain planets and not others. Certain of the seeded species aren't quite as equal. That is shamefully true. Dr. LeFrey's ears and tail lowered. It was because the Alliance was in a tough spot. Couldn't defend everybody, which makes it slightly better, I guess. Hard choices, Davies added. Gehenna rolled a little away so that she wasn't crowding Davies, but also so he wouldn't feel her continuing to shake. Who was Pelin? What was that conversation she imagined, remembered, all about? What did the voice who said that sound exactly like one she was trying to recreate now? While the thought of offering intelligent life in exchange for peace offended many, others believed it was just and right. The seeded species had been created by the Altaith. They could be used for whatever the Altaith wanted. Dr. LeVray said, the words with a slight tremor. I can see why you didn't tell the rest of the Alliance this stuff, Davies muttered. They worship the Altaith. To know that some of their heroes had feet of clay, well, it wouldn't be good. They are our creators, but they were not perfect, nor should we expect them to have been. Dr. LeFrey shrugged. The war had changed them, stretched them beyond their limits. This only happened at the end of the Empire when things were breaking down. Or perhaps I simply tell myself this to make the pain easier. She grasped the end of her own tail and held it as if to comfort herself. So these Altaith came here to stop the pilot program because they wanted the rest of the people to lose faith? Davies guessed after long silent moments. Chilan, you don't believe the project will work. A male voice cried out in Gehenna's mind. You're helping them despite the fact that you're planning to unbind yourself from the organic. Pelin, I do this so that others have a choice, Gehenna heard herself say. Being forced to live any way is not a life, and condemning those we brought into this universe is such a death, if you would even consider it, then I do not know you at all. In a softer tone, but colder too, and I do not want to. The pilot project paired those who desired to continue to fight the Cool and those who wished to upload themselves as the technology was almost the same. Hold on, I got the wrong voices. Was almost the same, or rather, it was compatible. Gehenna was speaking, taking over for Dr. Lefray. She began to roll backwards and forwards. Both sides needed one another. The technological minds behind unbinding from the organic would be invaluable in making sure that the pilot and the AI meshed, while the funding and governmental nature of the pilot program made sure that the unbinding was not simply left in the hands of the very wealthy, which would exclude everyone but those they chose to help. Uh, Gehenna, do you remember this? Davies asked, a frown upon his face. I I don't know. I think. Perhaps it just makes sense? But she made that sound like a question. Yes, it does make sense. But the visions we have garnered here, especially, tell us much about how these three groups work together and against one another, Dr. Lefray said with a nod at Gehenna. Her eyes held something, some knowledge. She opened her mouth and closed it. You don't recall your creation, Gehenna? No, I don't, she said softly. I don't know what my purpose was, but Jace says it doesn't matter, that it only matters what I do now and going forward. Do you think that's true? Dr. Lefray asked. Yes and no. I worry that my past might impact Jace negatively. I don't want to do anything that might hurt him or anyone else, Gehenna admitted. She looked over at the wall where the Osiris remained silent. What was it thinking? Did it truly have no memories of her? If it knew something bad about her, surely it would have already told Jace. And Jace, even if he didn't think these things were bad, would have told her. He wouldn't have withheld any knowledge from her. Though we did to him. But no, I don't think he's hiding anything from me. Does the rogue AI know something? Could it be telling Jace something about me now? Do you know which faction of Altaith won? Obviously not the pilot project, but maybe the Altaith left after handing us over to the Cool. That makes the most sense. Ganna thought of those little AIs. If some Altaith left, not all of them got away. It is unclear, Dr. Lefray shrugged. The male voice was suddenly in Gehenna's head again. If we allow this project to go forward, any peace talks with the Cool will fall apart, Talon. Good, she snapped. Bartering the seeded species to the Cool is foul and. But what is the alternative? If we go your way, then we barter away our own children, Pellin shouted. You've already done that with your decision to leave the organic world behind. I hope and pray that the project works, Pellin, but I cannot imagine bringing organic life into this world, she answered. I cannot do it. Not after what I've seen. You lost your family. I lost mine, but we have each other and we cannot have anything else, Pellin. This is my future. The program is what I will leave behind for others, she said. The pilot will still be organic. The AI will never accept such weakness in its system. In the end, it will reject the flesh too. Pellin insisted. It will never work. I will make it work. You will see. I will do it. Gehenna felt breathless, though she had no lungs. She looked around her, truly looked around her at the core, and realized that it wasn't new to her. It wasn't unfamiliar, and not because she had been there one time with Jace. No, she'd been here countless times, endless times. She looked at the section of the floor where the pool was hidden, where Jace had been plugged into the Osiris. She knew the viscosity of the blue liquid. She could feel the slight pinch at the back of her neck when she'd plugged in. How do we use this information to help Jace, though, is unclear to me, Davy said. I think I know, Ganna said softly. I do know. What? How? Davies asked. She rolled over towards the wall where the Osiris spoke. It didn't recognize her. Well, she wasn't the same person anymore. She was a copy, and her experiences had changed her from the woman Tilan, who had spent so much time in this room in an organic body. So she couldn't blame the Osiris at all for not knowing her. She truly didn't know herself. She still couldn't really remember anything, but she guessed that was because when she left this planet the last time, she just uploaded herself. It had been done quick and dirty. She'd done it to stop those who would take away choice and life and dignity for others. But much had been lost of who she had been copied from. Gehenna sighed then, said, I know how to fix this, because I created the pilot program. Dun dun dun! Let's see here. Woo! Okay. If Khoth had a tail, Jace would never. No, he wouldn't. I don't think I would. Oh, interesting. I don't know if I've seen so many Star Trek. I don't know if I remember that one. Oh, Beth, thank you. Frederica, I'm so glad you came. Gehenna seems to have some connection with this choice. Wonder if she was always a robot AI. Lucas, I love this. Well, we know that Gehenna is, but let's just hold on about the Osiris. So Gehenna is an example of being an upload from an original organic into a non-organic. Yep, she's not just a program. It was called T-Lan. Yes, she was. We had our time change. I'm so sorry, Cersei. It's so frustrating. I really wish they did not do yeah, it sucks. We're so glad to have you now. I love how Leisurely Past like, what? Yep. Thank you. Thank you. I am the queen of cliffhangers, Rose. Yes. Pelin was her lover. We finally find out about Gehenna. Oh, Crystal, I'm so glad that it came. Yay! I remember writing your stuff. I always feel weird when I'm like writing this because I'm like, I know you. I've known you for years. Okay, so so she says, so hi Wraith, sorry I'm late. It's okay. I wanted to scream about how amazing EDA has been. One of my fave stories ever. The universe is so vast and alive with so many characters now. It's amazing. And it's gonna get even bigger and it's gonna be really hard to manage in EDE, and I can't wait. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Thank you so much. Adrian, that's exactly like Osiris, I am your mother. Well, the Osiris get a boyfriend too, like the one guy who wants to be intimate with him. Well, Chal and Matthias are insistent that they are going to win the Osiris over into wanting to have a body. In this latest chapter, we see why maybe that, is different. Does that make Gehenna the Osiris' mom? Yeah, it does in a weird way, doesn't it? She is his creator. God, that must be, like making the Osiris like feel a little crazy. And the Night Prince has been so amazing so far. I've always loved the beginnings of stories when heroes don't know each other yet, discover each other. Yeah, and I'm definitely like talk about slow burn and all of this. It's such a slow burn. There's so much to come in that. Oh my god, I'm so excited for all of it. Here I am trying to like wrap up EDA, which I'm just sort of like anxious about doing because I'm like I want it. I can't. It is like a mourning process that I go through after each serial is done, like with even though I'm going on to EDE and like everything's continuing, I tell you, I feel like a loss of not writing those characters, that they're not like it really is painful to me. It's incredibly painful. Let's see. Also, thank you for the art features. I love them. These are amazing. Thank you. I'm so glad that you like them. Yay. All right. All right. All right. All right. We're going to go on because I left you guys with a crazy, crazy cliffhanger there, but we got another chapter. More episodes coming of Night Prince, too. All right. All right. So we're going to 111. Holy crap. And we leave Gehenna and go back to Jace. I'm sure you're all going to love that. Chapter 111, Unconnected. Jace stared at where the holographic AI had been. He'd been right in his guess that something was wrong with it, but also that something was right, too. The Salah might have tried to program it to harm him in his mission, but had to do so incompletely. They couldn't override the fact that the AI was meant to serve him and keep him safe. It is gone, Khoth breathed. He turned his head towards Jace. But is it? He touched his temple. Still here. It is, but it's definitely trying to shield me from everything but the most basic of its functions, which is problematic on a whole other level, Jace said. The truth was that he felt blind. He wasn't seeing auras, experiencing pounding headaches, or hearing the whine of tinnitus yet, but he didn't feel complete. I want the Osiris, he thought, and let out a soft laugh. What is it, Azael? Khoth clasped his arm. Jace covered that hand with one of his own. For all I complain about the Osiris's tartness and rigidity, and I miss it so much. I want it back, Khoth. I want it back. I know. Khoth nodded. I just have no idea how to fix this, Jace said. I do. Gehenna's voice came from Jace's comm. He didn't even use it, or hadn't, because it wasn't necessary with the Osiris, but now, of course, he was locked down to only the most basic systems. Blind, deaf, and dumb. God, this is awful. Jace gritted his teeth. Gehenna, it's not safe for you to be on the comm. I'm not even sure how you're communicating to me on it. It's safe for me. The rogue AI has dropped all security and it's uncontaminated, she interrupted him. There was a certainty in her tone that had not been there before. In fact, her whole voice seemed to change. Gehenna, Jace. Her voice was a whisper, but it was filled with emotion, love, and anguish and regret. So much love, though. Oh, Jace. Jace blinked. She sounded so different. Her voice was deeper, warmer, more adult, he would say. You have to come aboard the Osiris and head to the core. We will then plug you into the system. At that point, I'll be able to help you navigate your systems, Gehenna said. We'll be able to purge the rogue AI and reintegrate you with the Osiris, which will also upgrade at the same time. Everything will be fixed. I promise. Gehenna, how can we do that? Jay shook himself. How do you know how to do that? There was a beat of silence, and then she said simply, I built the Osiris. I built the whole pilot program. There's nothing that Pelen and those Selah fools could code that I can't undo. There was so much in those sentences that had him reeling. Not only was he blind, deaf, and dumb to the Altaith network, but clearly something massive had happened to Gehenna. Jace started, I remember, Jace. Some of it. Thalma's coming down with the dropship. Meet her up above, Gehenna said. He met Koth's eyes, which were filled with as much shock as his likely were. Koth was hearing the same thing he was, but was it true? Or some elaborate trick? Maybe the rogue AI was just pretending to try and shield him from its counter-programming, but this was the real gambit to take control of him and the ship. How do I know this is real? Jace asked, his voice breaking a little unreal. How do I know that this isn't some Sila trick to get me to infect the ship and wipe out the Osiris with the rogue AI? You could check our connection yourself and see that there's been no infiltration. And I could remind you that the Osiris has significant abilities to protect itself. But if I know you, and I do, you just need to trust your gut, she said, and trust me. Jace let out a shaky breath. You do know me, Gehenna. I've been with you all this time, and I will be with you, always. She told him, and there was something more than a promise in her words, but there was also a sadness in them. My God, I'm getting a little verklempt, guys. Wow, okay. All right, I need a drink here. Hold on a second. All right, we're coming up. I'll meet you in the core, he said and turned off the comm. Both he and Khoth stared down at it. Khoth turned off his comm too. They're off, but the AIs can still listen in through them, I think, Khoth said. Yeah, which is what makes them incredibly useful and terrifying, Jace admitted. So, we are truly going up to the ship, Khoth asked. Yeah, I think we have no choice, really, and I do I do trust her, Jace said. Koth gave a nod, and the two of them began to walk swiftly back towards the elevator. As they walked, they talked. She said that she built the pilot program, that she created the Osiris, Koth pointed out. Jace nodded. He'd been thinking about that since she'd said it. Part of what you didn't hear from the rogue AI was that some of the Altaith, in their desperation, uploaded themselves into the network. The little AIs I've told you about, those are people. What's left of them? What's left of the Altaith? Jace explained. There's something about Gehenna that's closer to them than she is to the Osiris. Now she's far more there. The little AIs are simpler, more like ghosts or shadows of people, while Gehenna is fully alive. But I can see how maybe she was organic before. Her emotions, the way she behaves, not even the rogue AI was that human. He laughed awkwardly. I suppose she wasn't human by Altaith, but you know what I mean. He was worried that his words would upset Koth again, or upset his beloved more, but Koth seemed quite in control of himself now. He did frown, though. We cannot trust anything that creature said, Koth muttered. The most powerful lies are ones that are couched in truth, Jay said, and the Sila weren't able to completely counter-program it. So I think it's true. And its statement that the Altaith created the seeded species as food for the cool, Koth spat out. I don't think that the Altaith created us for that. I think, though, that some of them may have thought it expedient to save themselves by offering others that they considered lesser than themselves, Jay said gently. Koth's mouth opened to object, but then he shut it with an audible click before sighing. How can I say that is not so when the Alliance has done the exact same thing? My mother and the High Counselors before her gave power and defense to those species that the Fel deemed more worthy than others. Maybe that was something we learned from the Altaith. They'd reached the elevator and stepped inside. Jace had a momentary qualm that they would be stopped from leaving, stranded in the elevator car, or that it would suddenly plummet to the bottom. But Gehenna was right that he could check the systems here and know that they hadn't been infiltrated. He stepped in alongside Koth, putting a hand on his beloved's near shoulder. The Altaith were not perfect. There were good and bad ones, and ones in between. The kind of endless war against the cool grinds people down until not only are they not their best selves, but they wouldn't even recognize who they are anymore, Jay said. As the elevator rose, Koth nodded. I've always wondered why they left us, for we thought they left. We would not allow ourselves to think they were gone forever. They were somewhere out there, but that meant they must have abandoned us. Scholars claim they went looking for new resources to win the war, but would return to help us. Had they not left us the tech we needed? They abandoned it because there was no one left to use it, Jace thought. Maybe some did leave and escape the cool. The universe is vast and unknown, but it's more likely that the rest perished, picked off by the cool, uploading themselves into the net with the pilot program of failure. Despair must have settled in. But that is like a child. But that is like a child who waits where its parents has left them day after day, convinced they will return, even as that child is harmed by the elements, starving for lack of food, in danger. Kyle shook himself. There are so many things I have simply accepted all my life, Azael. Wisdom handed down that I have treated as if written in Calcanth, unquestionable. Jace tightened his hand on Koth's shoulder. There's so much to juggle just living with a cool Koth. Adding on these other questions, what good does it do? It doesn't change your present or your future. Koth cupped Jace's cheek. No, but you change it. You've changed everything, and I am so glad. They rested their foreheads together. Jace let out a soft huff of laughter. I worried that you'd be mad at me, look at me differently after what the rogue AI said about the Altaith, even though I know that no one person is responsible for their whole species. You are what the Altaith should have been, Koth told him. Bright, Warm, fierce, loyal, kind. I could never think badly of you. Jace felt the burn of tears behind his eyes. You want you make me want to be better. To be that in your eyes is all I could ever dream to be. The elevator slowed and they parted, but they linked hands as the doors opened. They walked out onto Thausia's surface together. Jace was still having to keep their bond to a thin thread, but he had never felt so close to Khoth. There was a hot whoosh of air from the dropship's engines that blew Jace's hair back. He raised an arm to shield his eyes from the debris. The gangway was down, and Thama was hanging outside of the ship. She gestured for them to hurry to her. They did. Only when the gangway hissed shut and the roar of the engines was dulled to a rumble did Thama speak. Gehenna said you needed a lift pronto, she said as she looked them both up and down. She sounded, well, not like Gehenna. There were no smileys. No, there weren't. It's a long story, Jace said. Tell me later. I can see that it's urgent I get you back. Thelma waved him off while she went towards the cockpit while he and Khoth settled themselves down in the seats. Even as their harnesses clicked in place over them, he held onto Khoth's hand. Normally he knew everything that was happening with the dropship. Was the engine running perfectly? Did it need maintenance? How were Thelma's vitals? Was she ill or in tip-top shape? But now he knew none of that. And worse than that, he couldn't just plug into the dropship and fly it if anything were to go wrong. I've gotten too used to having a plan B, C, D, and more, he realized. It's good that I remember how things are for people not connected to all-powerful AIs. They do their jobs despite it. I need to as well. Still, he relished when Khoth kissed his temple and rested his head on the fell's broad shoulder. He looked past Khoth out the window as they went from the atmosphere into space, the great black vacuum. Before, he'd felt the connection between not only himself and the Osiris, but the entirety of the Altaith network. Now, it was just blackness. I hope the little AI is all right without me for a bit, he thought. I wonder how the Osiris is handling things. Probably just fine. Glad my emotions aren't mucking up its day. But he knew that wasn't true nor fair. When he'd been disconnected from the Osiris on Hassian, but still had Gehenna, he'd known the joy the AI felt being reconnected. When he saw the ship come into view, his heart skipped a beat. It looked just as glorious as ever, but he felt like he was seeing it for the first time as something separate, other, and mysterious from himself. It's beautiful, Jace whispered. So beautiful. Thalma didn't give him much of a chance to gaze upon the Osiris, as she was soon flying them to one of its many hangar bays. He felt the faint thud as the dropship settled down. The ship seemed to unbuckle quickly, as if urging them to leave and get to the core, but Jace found himself moving more slowly. Azael, do you feel unwell? Khoth questioned. No, just... This is the first time I'll see the crew without my augmentation, Jace confessed. He had only earned to lead them because of his connection to the AIs that they didn't have. Now he didn't fully have them either. What right did he have to be their leader? Seeing himself now, Jace wondered how anybody had ever thought him capable. General Toshkin, Nova, all of them were right to question me, Jace thought. Azael, you are not all right, Khoth insisted. I was just thinking that without the AIs, who am I? Is what I'm thinking that important or worth listening to? Jace said. His chest ached, and he felt like he was standing on the edge of the abyss. You think people follow you because of your connection to the AIs alone? Khoth shook his head and smiled. Oh, Israel, we cannot see that connection. We listen to your words. We see your action. Yours, no one else's. And those are what inspire us. Yeah, Jay shook himself. I'm sorry, I'm just feeling as if you've been hijacked, your world turned upside down. Yes, because it has been. But you, Jace, are still you. Still worthy. Remember this, Khoth said. They had to stop talking as Salma was coming out of the cockpit. It wasn't that Jace didn't trust her with his information, but he didn't want to explain. She had been right that they didn't have time. If this could be reversed, if he could be restored, it needed to happen yesterday. What do you need me to do, Jace? She asked. Jace had no idea for a moment, but then he said, Just be you. Take care of everyone. Make sure that people are safe. Her eyes searched his face. She clearly knew that something was very wrong, but she nodded. Of course, Jace. You can count on me, she assured him. I know. Thanks, Thama. Jace quickly turned and made his way out of the dropship. He was glad he didn't stumble. He wanted to get to the core as quickly as possible. He'd keep his head down and beeline there without talking to anyone if he could help it. He didn't want anyone else to know that things were so fragile, but his plans were almost immediately scuttled. Son, his father called. Jack was wiping his hands on a rag as he exited his own Paladin-class ship. He would have known the name of the ship. He would have known the little AIs that inhabited it if he were fully connected to the Osiris or Gehenna. But instead, the ship just sat there as his father, smiling, jogged down the gangway. My parents earned their places. I just inherited mine. Hey, Dad, he said with a rather weary wave. Of course, his father immediately noticed that something was wrong. He tossed the oily rag into a bucket and headed to Jace. Chal popped his head out of his father's ship. Jace saw that they were having some drinks, and likely Chal was showing his father how to maintain his ship. Though the aircraft his father flew became more and more complex, his father had always taken a hands-on approach to them, watching the mechanics work, reading the manuals, taking even the maintenance tests. So Jace was not surprised the two of them had hooked up. Of course, if Jace had the Osiris, he would have known exactly what they had been up to and a complete record. It's good I don't. Feeling how exposed I feel with the rogue AI should remind me that people deserve their privacy. I don't need to know everything, Jace reminded himself. I saw the whole group come up and now you're here, his father said as he stopped a foot or so from Jace. His intelligent eyes searched Jace's face. Did you not find anything? We found, Jace swallowed. We found a lot. I need to coordinate with Gehenna and the Osiris to really understand it all. Khoth's hand tightened on his. Them holding hands in the Osiris went against what they had agreed to in forms of PDA in front of the crew. But Jace could not let Khoth go. He felt like he would break apart if he did so. Okay, sounds serious. Anything I can help with? His father cast his voice low as he clearly knew the information was distressing. He doesn't know the half of it. No, it's okay. I can tell that you and Chal are bonding. That's good, Jay said with a weak smile. Jack looked over his shoulder at the Foch. He's a smart guy for sure. Only got his attention as the Osiris which has shooed him out of the rest of the ship. The Osiris would do that since they were disconnected. Chal fussed with his tail as it had whipped out of the loop he held it in. He too knew something was up. We're the worst liars in the universe. Yeah, like I said, we learned a lot. Keep him busy? Jace said. His father bobbed his head, but his eyes never left Jace's face. Of course, whatever you need. Thama had said much the same. These incredibly intelligent, courageous, awesome people were all working with him to make his vision, their vision, real. But it was mostly his vision, his idea. He was so lucky. But was he worthy? His father reached out and squeezed his shoulder. Whatever it is, Jace, you can handle it. You'll figure it out. You'll make it through. I know you. Jace smiled and ducked his head. I appreciate that, Dad. I hope I can live up to that belief. You already have, and you always do, Jack told him gently. But I'll let you go. I can see you're eager to head out. Jace nodded again. I'll talk to you later. His father nodded as well and headed back to his ship and Chal, calling out, Hey, you were going to help me adjust the sensitivity of the yoke. The ship will move just by you thinking about it, Jack, Chal offered. Let's go, Jace said to Khoth. His beloved immediately began to walk with powerful, steady strides towards one of the sets of doors out of the hangar bay. A bunch of people called out to them, to Jace specifically, but Jace just smiled and waved them off. Later, got a thing to do, Jace called back, which wasn't a lie, but felt like one. If he'd been connected to the ship, he would have anticipated what they needed and gotten it done. He wouldn't have needed to slow down at all. Multitasking with the AIs was natural and easy, but not now. Finally, they were in the lift heading to the core. Jace leaned against the back of the elevator car. This has to work, Khoth, Jace said as he lightly tapped the back of his head against the elevator car. Khoth gently stopped him from doing that. It will. I just didn't know how much I depended upon them both. I mean, I knew, but I feel so disconnected, but this was always how I was. This is how everyone else is, and they seem fine, but Jace bit his lower lip. I'm also disconnected from you. I don't know if I can ever reopen our bond. You will, Khoth said again. I know this. I am certain. I know, but no buts. Trust in this. Khoth kissed his forehead. The elevator doors opened, and they entered the familiar, clean hallway that led to the core. Jace's stomach felt filled with butterflies. Thankfully, the hallway was empty. I'm assuming Gehenna is in the core end. The door to the core opened, and he faced Dr. Lefray's kind, furry face. Her tail looked at him, too. He resisted the urge to pet it, but it was a near thing. Pilot, Commander, she said happily, making a mew sound at the end. I am so glad you are both unharmed. Except he wasn't unharmed. His mind was bleeding. His soul was cut off. But he nodded and gave her a tight smile as she stepped aside to let them enter. The pool of blue goo was exposed. The many metal tentacles moved restlessly beneath the liquid surface. Gehenna was rolling back and forth as if pacing. Davy stood by the wall where text was appearing. Osiris! Jace surged forward toward the wall. The text disappeared. Jace reached towards the wall. This was ridiculous. He knew this was a wall, not the Osiris. He could touch any wall on the ship and be touching the Osiris. This wall wasn't more special. Pilot. Jace put his hands on the wall on either side of the word. Hi. Are you okay? There was a pause, and then, yes. Another pause. Are you? Jace let out a choked laugh that was more a cry. No, I'm not okay. I need you. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead to the wall. He repeated, I need you. He felt everyone's eyes on him and then moved away to give him and the Osiris at least some sense of privacy. I am here. You are here. We are together, the Osiris responded. No, I need you in here. He pointed to his head, touching his right temple. Tilan will fix this, the Osiris wrote. Tilan? Who is Tilan? Jace asked. He felt a gentle bump from Gehenna's bald body against his left leg. Gehenna, hey, I didn't mean to ignore you. It's okay. I feel you, she said, sounding like herself again. And I feel you, but I'm too afraid I'll lose you forever if I open our link any farther, Jace said. You're not going to lose anything anymore. Once you get into the tank, it will be safe to open up our connection. Then we'll go into the code and eliminate the bad stuff, she said. Yeah, you said something about that and that you were the one to create the Osiris. Glancing over at the wall, he said, I'm surprised the Osiris isn't debating this. It is true, a fact, the Osiris wrote. She is Tilan, the creator. So Jay stopped as he looked down at Gehenna's body. So you're one of the Altaith who uploaded themselves into the net. Yes, but the Osiris is incorrect in saying that I am Tilan. I am a copy of her, but not her. And I am an incomplete copy at that, but it was necessary. She did not have time to complete the transfer, Gehenna explained. I'm Gehenna, not Tilan. Wow, that sounds really heavy to know, Gehenna. Are you okay? He asked. I'm not sure, she admitted, but that's only because you're in danger and upset. Once I fix this, I will be okay. Better than that. We can deal with the rest when things are as they should be. Jace wiped away tears he hadn't realized had fallen. Yeah, I feel the same. So how do we do that? You will need to connect again to the core, she said. Then open your connection to me. The two of us will go into the code and we will... How do we do that? What will it be like? Will it be like when I summoned Metal Rain? He asked. Yes and no, she said. It will look like the past. He lifted an eyebrow. What do you mean? We're going to see what happened on Thausia on the day of the attack, she said. As we do that, we'll be able to unwind what the Sila did to the code. It will make sense when you're experiencing it. Are you okay with that? If that's the day that you... I want to remember, Jace, she said with certainty. I want you to know too. And that is the end of chapter 111. Let's see here. Whoa! Oh my God. Another, okay. Was the Osiris another person? No, but you'll find out. And the character was in prison in her child's dungeon. Yes, and we'll find out why. We will find out why. Leisurely Panda, you are much, much too generous and kind. Thank you. So, do you think Nick will try to steal someone's heart in EDE? Will he be a throuple with K-Morn and Quinn? Okay, so I'll tell you what my plan is with Nick. That does not mean that it will actually happen. By the way, those of you who don't know, the characters in EDE, the main characters are K-Morn, Quinn Mallory, and Nick Avery. And Nick Avery is not paired up with anyone. I actually don't intend to pair him up right now because I want another character so that we can have another the following book, what happens with that. So we will see. So I don't know. It could end up being a throuple, but I don't think so because Nick has his own big arc. And he's like going to be dealing with some shit. He's definitely going to be dealing with some shit. Okay. Ganna also had to program her entire creation to rely heavily on someone else. She did. She did. Hey, Skylar. And speaking of art, the art of Damon with long hair from T-Wolf, Damon from the past, he's gorgeous. I'm in love. I know she's done some really spectacular work. We're having some more stuff from her. It's really good. Question. Raythe, did you get Jace's name from the 1980s cartoon Jace and the Wheeled Warriors? Or is it a coincidence? Nothing to do with one another. I don't even know what that is. Adrian, if I didn't mourn the story, I didn't love it. That's so true. That's so true. Chapter 11, not chapter 111. I know. I'm sorry. What the hell? I don't know how to say this. Wait. Getting me all screwed up now. Could the rogue AI be Pelin? Oh, that's an interesting question. I love Gehenna. Yes, I know. She's basically coming into herself. Leisurely Panda's like, Wraith, if something bad happens to Gehenna, I'm suing for emotional damages. Yeah, I would have to do that to myself. I love this. Listening to this while also hyper fixated on Stargate is so fun. That's awesome. Poor Jay's second guessing himself now that he's cut off. He is still the type of person his crew would follow anywhere. Absolutely, they are. Yeah. And they're holding hands. Dies. All the drama. Yes. So we're going to actually see what happens. They're going to see it. They're going to experience it. It's going to be great. I think we're all a little excited and anxious. Okay, so Skylar says, I literally haven't been reading the book so far because I like to read a bunch of it. So this is where I actually left off. You do realize that there are 67 chapters. It's 167. Chapter 167 came up last night. That's wild. That's wild. I never know how people are I had this idea that I needed to have all these different stories for people in order to make sure that everyone was happy all the time. But I'm actually finding that people really like less stories and more chapters, which is I don't know why I didn't get that sooner. Jace's bond with the Osiris and Gehenna is so cute. It is. I actually got verklempt a few times reading this. I was like, oh my God, my voice is getting tight. As long as he ends up stealing someone's. Oh yeah, he's going to steal a lot of hearts. That's so nice. Yes, looking forward to where the series is going. Yay! I honestly no. I haven't even. I never liked the Sliders television series. To be honest with you. So that's just an accident. That's so funny. Lilith's like, I'm so sad. I wanted to continue. It will next month. Lucas says, I know I'm very capable of reading the next chapters on the website. I feel like that waiting makes the hype better and listening to the next chapter more satisfying. Well, I'm so glad that you're enjoying it this way. That's so great. I hope everyone's having a great month. Kind of sucks that I missed out on the first part. You will be able to hear it. I'm going to go and start reading from 112. Oh my God. Yeah, it's only oh. Yeah, well, it's going to be I think I'm only going to ever. I think I'm going to keep it to 3 stories now going forward, um, instead of 4, so we can have longer stuff. Well, yeah, that's my plan. People like to binge. They totally like to binge. They save up and they binge. Absolutely. See you later, Crystal. Michael asks, "What's my average word count?" It's between 3,500 and 5,000 words. Ren was snapping all this. Thank you, Raythe. I love EOS. I love that you read to us. I just restarted listening from the beginning when the pandemic was raging. Such a strange. Oh, I know, David. Isn't it so weird? I remember when I started doing this, like Dragon's Reign, and how Kat had to drop off her old microphone, and like I didn't know when I was going to see her. We thought it was going to be a few weeks, and then it just ended up changing our entire existence. Except I knew it wasn't going to be a few weeks. I'm like one of the few that proud that read about the 1918 pandemic, and I was like, shit, this is not good. But I'm so glad that we're really not past it, but we're acting like we are. So I guess that's the thing. Okay, what did I say here? I'm loving K Moore, even though I should not. His voice has done this. I'm sure the actor will love Bruno would love to know that right now. Lilith, go to bed. It's 4:37 a.m. I went to bed at like 5:30 in the morning. It's like crazy. I think stories. Yeah, I think so too, Ren. I think that's the goal. I think, and it allows me also because I don't know if you guys do know how much time, effort, energy it takes to basically like build a new serial, and like all these, like the Wicked Path and EOS. EOS is like probably nearly done. Like I would say like a quarter of, we have one more quarter left. And then the Wicked Path, it's just like then that would be done. It'd be like trying to create, and I can't do that. It's just too much, especially with all the world building I do now. I mean, I really like with Night Prince, you have no idea like how much that took. I mean, so much. And you can see how much better the world building is and how much full the story is now that I've done that. Now that I've asked myself those questions, what would it be like? What would it be like? What would it be like? And we're able to explore all this stuff. And I want every story to have that kind of richness and depth. That's very important. And also, like I said, I'm trying to do any new serial to have an audio component, for those of you who came in for the audio and want more audio. So that also limits what I can do, in terms of switching back and forth. So we're going to go with that, but it's all good. You guys, this was a blast as always. Thank you so much for being here with me. I can't wait to do this again next month, as always. It's going to be such a good time, I think. So as it's all good. Um, so Leisure Panda, if Eldaron and Iolair went flying together, would people see the gold and white dragons or the black and blue? That's a good question. Oh my god. Also, how much psychic damage would Tez take for Eldaron being confused? A lot. I think both of I think like Eldaron and Tez are like the equivalent of like the Ken dolls of the DR universe. You know what kind of story you're going to be doing after this? Yes, I actually do. Um, I will give you one little hint about what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be dragon riding. We will see. Yes, so I have an idea. I have an idea. Donald Smith, we will get Elizabeth and Henry back, but not in EDA. Maybe, actually, we don't really. I agree. I love the extensive world building of the more recent stories. Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. All right. Speaking of Dragon's Reign, I'm kind of happy and sad you're trying to improve it because I was midway listening to it again. You can, if you are a member, you'll be able to listen to the old one. But yeah, something new is coming. Something huge is coming next month. If you are a member and you were thinking, well, maybe I'll just wait to, sign up for EDA. You want to sign up next month. Trust me, something very large is coming. It's all good. I know, Lilith. Do your best. We'll be posting it. We'll be posting some of it on YouTube. You're welcome. Take care, you guys. I'll let you go, my friends. I have not read Fourth Wing. I'll look into it, Leisurely Panda, my friend. Adrian, yeah, I'm looking to do a great magic system coming up. All right, you guys, you take care of yourselves. We will talk soon. Take care. Have a wonderful